Hey, what's up? I'm Mike Squires, Couchers Podcast, episode number 154. My guest, Aurelien Budynek. Aurelien has had every gig you've ever wanted. It's incredible. Every gig I've ever wanted. Maybe not every, but he's had some cool ass gigs. This dude is he's good, man. He's good. His gigs run the gamut. Like he's had every kind of gig you can do. It's incredible. He's teaching lessons online. If you want to hit him up, aurelienbudynek.com. I know that you probably are like, I don't know how to spell that, but you know what? Look down here. It's right there. That's how you spell it right there. Or go check him out on Instagram. Follow him there. You can hit him up there. I had a great time talking with him. He's got a really cool story, great story. So, thanks to him for giving me so much time and talking with me. Thanks to everyone who's supporting the Couchers podcast. You guys are great. I love you. If you are enjoying this podcast, the videos, the cover songs, any of that stuff, please support us on Patreon. I almost forgot the name of it. Support us on Patreon. It's the only place where you can get the downloads of our songs, the cover songs that we do. What in the heck here? It's the only place where you can download these cover songs that we're producing, and there are entry points for support as low as $5 a month, and your support goes all the way toward helping make this happen. If it wasn't for that, I could not do it. So thank you to everyone who's doing it. If you've been on the fence, now and anytime is a good time to jump in, and I'll just say thank you. You don't you don't even know how much it's appreciated. So also, thank you to River City Guitars for supporting Couch Riffs. River City Guitars is a fancy little vintage, used, and just generally cool boutique guitar store in Spokane, Washington. Every day is a buying day there. Follow them on Instagram at River City Guitars. They get stuff in all the time. Post it on Instagram. Sells, never makes the website. Follow them. If you've got something that you are trying to move, you want to sell, or a collection, get a hold of them. Something cool, something vintage, something, maybe you listen and you're not even a player. I don't know. Maybe this was your dad's or your granddad's. Give them a call. My guy, Bobby, I trust him 110%. You should also trust him. He's great. I met him through doing business. And if you meet someone and you trust them in doing business and you recommend them, to me, that's the highest form of recommendation that you can possibly give. So give them a call, 509-818-7693, or drop them an email, sales@rivercityguitars@gmail.com. Tell them I sent you, and include a picture, Okay, we're going to jump into this episode. Again, I had a great time. I hope you enjoyed this as much as I did. Don't forget the golden rule. Treat people the way you want to be treated, and don't be a dickhead.
All right.
Great. How you doing, man?
I'm good. How are you?
Yeah, I'm good. Hey, do me a solid.
Yeah.
Right off the top.
Say again?
Do me a solid just right off the top here.
Right off the top, yeah.
Say your name for me.
No, I've never heard that request before.
I'm sure. I know. I'm sorry.
That's all right. It's Aurelien.
I think I got that part.
Yeah. Last name Budynek.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
No surprises. No.
I guess. And there's, but a lot of people struggle with it. So that's, I've heard it all. It's all good.
I'm sure. Yeah. How you doing?
I'm all right.
You're at home. You live in Brooklyn or Queens? Where you at?
I live in Queens, yeah, in Astoria.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
A lot of musicians live in Astoria.
Yeah, it seems like that. A lot of actors too, from Broadway and stuff like that. It's close to the city. It's relatively cheap,
Yeah.
So that's a hub for sure.
Cheap isn't something you hear a lot.
Well, all things considered, I guess.
Yeah. Who I think that we have maybe a small handful of mutual friends.
I'm sure.
Oscar Hogdahl.
Yeah.
I've played.
We've actually never met, but I know. Really? Yeah. We've played on the same gigs, but not together. If that makes any sense.
Are those Broadway things?
No. Well, this particular gig is with Mark Martel, the singer.
Oh man, what a killer! You had that gig?
Well, I was a sub for Tristan, who's the main guitarist, but I've played, a bunch of shows with them all over the place. Yeah.
What a fun gig that must be.
Yeah, it's awesome.
Did you? And you didn't rehearse. You just were like, they were like, oh, this guy's got his shit together. You show up, sound check a couple songs, and
yeah, more or less. I mean, it's that's what I do, man.
Right.
No, but
it's a tall order, though. People, even non-musician spectators have, they're scrutinizing a band that's doing Queen music,
For sure. I mean, that's a ton of pressure, and especially, on any band member, but particularly on the guitarist too. Brian May. It's like it's no joke. And that band in particular is like very, they do it like the recording. So you can't really. And Queen music in general, I mean, you can't really play anything else other than what is on the recording. That's every part is so iconic. Every guitar solo is a part in itself. You can't really do your own solo on Bohemian Rhapsody or something. That would be just wrong.
I think he's just one of the coolest rock guitarists.
Oh man, he's so good. And like preparing for that gig, like gave me a further appreciation for him, like to really dive deep in the playing catalog. I mean, I knew all those songs. I had heard all those songs, but some of them I'd never played before. Most of them, and definitely I'd never played note for note necessarily,
A lot of them are fucking weird songs too, man.
Yeah.
Like they're kind of groovy. They kind of swing, but like they've got all kinds of weird changes, especially some of that shit off like Sheer Heart Attack.
Mm-hmm.
That shit is weird.
Yeah, there's a lot of there's a lot of weird stuff, and we've done. I mean, that band does a lot of the greatest hits, but we've done like some deeper cuts, like Death on Two Legs and stuff like that. That's like a very strange one. And we've dropped that one because I guess the audience reaction wasn't quite as good as expected.
I don't know why.
Well, it's just a lesser known song. I think is we play. Listen, we played it perfect. All right.
Right.
So that couldn't be that.
Sure. I'm sure of it. What? I don't want to hang on. I know that it's not a main gig for you, so I don't want to hang on it too long, but I have a lot of questions about it.
Oh, yeah. I mean, a lot of my gigs that I've done haven't been main gigs, so
right.
So feel free to, I can talk about it for however long you want or however short.
Awesome. You said you're a sub for that?
Yeah.
So do you roll in and use the AC30s that are backlined for that gig, or do you have to come with your own?
Well, so there's no guitar amps on that gig, as it turns out. So we've been using emulation amps, I've been using a Fractal, and programming the sounds. So you're just rolling with your Fractal and with the sounds all dialed in, and you're good. You know, you adjust a couple things and that's it. You know.
So, and you guys are on ears.
Yeah.
So are you guys singing harmonies too? Are you
Yeah.
doing it? Oh, damn.
Yeah, it's serious. I mean, it really is a great band. You know, like everybody is top notch, musically and personally, and you know, it's the real like Queen experience without seeing Queen. You know.
I've been enjoying Brandon's videos.
Oh, he's a nutcase
The
in
other
the
thing,
best ways.
yeah, he's great. He was in a Couchers video, one of my very first ones,
Oh,
maybe my
cool.
first one.
Yeah.
We
He
did,
lives in Astoria. He's in Astoria. He's not in Astoria right now, but he has a place in Astoria,
yeah.
not far from me.
Again, everyone, like so many people there. It's great.
Yeah.
Um, I saw that you also played with Marky Ramone. Like what?
Yeah.
I mean, when I looked at your website and poked around a little bit, I was just like, I mean, the variety of gigs that you've covered are pretty intense.
Yeah, man. I mean, you know, that's kind of my MO, you know. I'm just I'm a musical schizophrenic, you know. So in
Great.
what I listen to and what I play, I'm just interested in a lot of things. You know, I'm very curious and I go deep into things, you know. So after, you know, I've been playing for however long, 25 years or more, you know. So it's like I just want to do everything, and then what I do, I want to do it well, you know. So it ends up being that, you know, and I just enjoy performing whatever it is, you know, and the things that I feel I'm good at or that I have something to add to, you know.
Right. So, where are you from?
I'm from France.
Yeah.
I grew up. I'm born and raised in Bordeaux, in
Okay.
southwest of France.
I think where's Hellfest?
That's like, you know, about 3 hours north or
Okay.
so. Yeah, I forget
That
the
part.
name of the town. It's like a little village, you know, where they have this
Tiny place.
big field. Yeah,
Right.
yeah,
So you're like even further, like further out, down.
yeah. Yeah, closer to Spain, like a
Spain. Yeah.
couple
Okay.
hours away from Spain.
Oh man, it's nice down there.
Yeah,
But not a lot of gigs to be had, huh?
not too much, man. I mean, that's the thing. Like growing up over there, I mean, it's you know, I took private lessons and I went to a music school there and stuff like that, like a jazz conservatory, which is really good and that's still around. And but there's not many gigs. There's a lot of like amateur gigs, you know, like I was in a bunch of bands, like doing little gigs, and that's been really fun.
Yeah.
And but you know, to do it professionally, I mean, even, you know, some of the musicians I know, the pro musicians I know who live in Paris, you know, like there, it's, and that's the biggest city over there, but that there's still not a ton of gigs to be had, you know, compared to, you know, a place like New York or even LA or Nashville, or there's just more opportunities over here, I feel.
Right. How quickly, like let's start at the very beginning.
Oh boy.
Uh, were your parents musicians?
Not at all.
No.
No. I'm the only, well, you know, I'm the only pro musician in the family, that's for sure. I started playing because I have an older brother who's 8.5 years older than me. And when he graduated high school, I was 9 years old and he got a guitar as a graduation gift. And I would, you know, whatever he would do, I would do at that age, you know, and still
Right.
now, I guess, on some level.
Right.
He's always, you know, he'll always be my role model. So whenever he wasn't playing guitar, I would just pick it up, and I kind of got more into it than he did. He still plays, and you know, he plays in an amateur band and stuff like that. And but he never took lessons, and he never got super deep into it. But I did, you know.
Yeah, clearly.
Too deep. No
So,
going back now.
so at what point do your parents go, all right, well, uh, you're playing this thing a lot more than your brother, or there's some conflict of time sharing. Let's get him his own.
Yeah, that there wasn't really a conflict. I mean, they saw pretty quick that I was into it, and pretty quickly, probably a few months after that, they got me like a half size classical guitar or whatever it was. That I think it was a half size, and it's just my own, so that we would have our own. And but that wasn't really. There was no rivalry. There wasn't any
Right.
drama like that.
What kind of music was your brother into? Because I imagine that probably had some influence on what you were into.
Yeah, it's funny. It did a little bit. Like he was really into sort of like indie rock and indie pop. So at the time, in the early '90s, he was super into like bands like the Pixies and the Breeders,
Yeah.
uh, Sonic Youth, that kind of stuff, and that had a big influence on me. And mind you, this is all pre-internet and stuff like that. This is stuff you hear on the radio, and like very specialized radio shows, and magazines you get in the mail and stuff like that. It's a little more. It was hard to get into that, and you go to the record store and all that stuff, right? People turn
Yeah.
you on to things. But so you're 9. I'm just listening to what my parents are listening to and what my brother is listening to, which I thought was a little cooler at the time because it was more obscure. And out of all those bands, I remember really getting into the Breeders. That really spoke to me for some reason.
Oh yeah.
And still, I listen to a few of their albums now, and I still have a lot of appreciation for it. It's just that's
I
just
have
in
a
me.
deep love for Last Splash.
Yeah, that's the one, man. I mean, it's the best. It's there's nothing better, in that in how they did it, and it is so attached to a certain time of my life, emotionally, and it just, I always say music is a time machine, so whenever I put that record on, I'm 10, for better or worse.
Yeah. That's amazing.
Yeah.
Did you learn a bunch of those songs? Were those some of the first songs you learned?
A little bit, yeah. I was also at the time. I was really into Dire Straits. That's the band that got me into. Okay, I want to do that. I want to play guitar.
Fancy guitar.
Yeah. And so that kind of band, like blues, Stevie Ray Vaughan, those kinds of things, like styles of music that are more. I guess guitar forward in a more academic way, like the Breeders are, there's obviously a lot of guitar, but it comes, it's more from a punk, school a little bit.
Yeah. That's a lot more raw.
Yeah, exactly. And I didn't quite understand. As much as I loved their music back then, I didn't quite understand where that was coming from. I was more attracted to lead lines and just kind of not showing off, but like, showcasing and featuring the instrument more,
Right.
So that's what I was trying to play at first, getting into blues and improvising and then once in a while there will be a magazine that comes out with like a transcription of Cannonball from the Readers, and I'm like, oh, this is how you play this. Okay, cool. It's a riff. What's a riff? Oh, awesome, cool.
Right.
You know.
What an interesting duality of styles that you were into.
Yeah, it started early on, I guess.
Yeah. So did you go hard both ways? Did you like go, because you said you went to a music school?
Yeah.
So I mean that's probably, and you said it was jazz, not classical.
Yeah. Yeah. So I took private lessons from a guy who lived in Bordeaux, who still lives there, for about 4 years. He would come every Saturday at my parents' house, and he turned me on to a lot of things too. Like he showed me, a bunch of Stevie Ray Vaughan stuff, but he turned me on to, Joe Satriani and Steve Vai and all those guys, and that just completely, cracked my mind open. You know,
Right.
I was like, wow, I've never heard anything like that, and I love it. You know.
What was
And
your entry point of all the of those two? Like, what was the record that he first introduced you to? Because that's sometimes
yeah,
that has a pretty strong impact.
for sure. For Satriani, it was the Extremist.
Okay.
Yeah, that that's the one for me, and I still love it. You know, like I know every song inside and out. But I remember he showed me a couple of songs to study. You know, like some, or even just like some licks and stuff like that, and then he gave me he let me borrow a cassette tape of the whole album. You know, which I just wore out, and you know that was incredible. And for Vi, I think it was either Alien Love Secrets or Passion and Warfare. I don't remember which one came first for me. You know, they were close.
I only got into Passion and Warfare like a year and a half ago
Oh yeah, yeah.
because I was such a Flexible guy. Like I'm
Wow,
a
yeah.
Zappa fan,
Mm-hmm.
and Flexible was that was the one. I had that record before Passion and Warfare came out, and then
Yeah.
Passion and Warfare came out. I was hoping for some more extreme freakiness, and the freakiness on there, but it was a different kind of freakiness. It was interwoven with some convention and
Yeah.
big rock. He had all that sort of big rock experience behind him at that point. But man, now that I'm into it, it's just like, what was I thinking? How could I have not loved this?
Well, I mean, you know, if I mean, that's the same reason I think that probably I was into it back then, you know, because there was sort of a happy medium between like, you know, weird shit and stuff that is more sort of conventional and melodic and you know, virtuosic and what have you, like easier to listen to, you know. And I remember trying to listen to Flexible around then, and I was like that shit ain't for me at all, you know.
Right.
And you know, I love it now, but I wasn't ready for it then, you know. It wasn't there for me.
So you're learning Satriani licks from this teacher. How old are you at this point?
I'm like 12,
Are
something
you
like that.
nailing it?
Well, you know,
You can, I mean, it's okay to say, yeah,
close to it.
yeah. So
Yeah,
you excel quickly.
yeah, yeah, yeah. And you know, I feel that I feel it, you know, and like, it feels good because you know, for one thing, like nobody I know knows about those guys, those people, those musicians, you know.
Right. What are your
Which
friends into at this point?
I don't know. They're not even into music, you know. Like they listen to shit that's on the French radio at that point, and that, you know, a lot of it is, you know, really bad, you know, rap music and, you know, pop, and you know, it's just and I'm not even, you know, trying to diss it. It was just like pretty bad quality back then, you know.
Right.
So you know, that felt good to, and I think, I mean, I can't speak for them, you know, but I would imagine that they didn't really even have a say in what they liked, you know. That's just what was on the radio, and that's what they heard, and I'm like, oh yeah, sure, I like that.
Right.
And for me, it took more of a, there was more in investigating and research, you know, and like, okay, I don't like that, but I do like Satriani, and I do like Dire Straits, and I do
Well, plus
like,
you
you know,
had this tool that you were creating and recreating sounds with, and so none of the sounds in disco tech music are represented with a guitar, you know?
right. Yeah, I mean, that's you know, one of the reasons I probably connected with it too. Like I could really recognize the guitar and just hear every part, and pretty soon thereafter, like I understood every part, or I understood how it was crafted, you know.
Uh, your guitar teacher,
Yeah.
was he heavy on the theory, or were you just like, show me the licks, man? That's all I want. Give me the licks, give me the riffs, let's go.
It was a little of both, you know. Like at first, when I started taking from him, I think I was 11, and up until I was 14 or 15. So at first we weren't doing any theory. He was just kind of showing me songs and just kind of, getting my technique in shape. And the better I got and the deeper I got, he started showing me, why are those called like that, and why, what's a degree and what's a scale, what's a mode, all that kind of things, And but that was a little later on. But I took to that pretty quickly too. It's it's kind of like math to me, So it's something that's very objective and almost scientific. This is the root, and this is the third, and this is the fifth, and if you do this, then it's a sharp five, and there's no it's almost like mechanical in a way, and my part of my brain functions like that very well. So that was relatively easy to understand what that all meant and how to connect it on the guitar.
Right. You don't sound mechanical when you play. I think.
I hope not.
I think that, I hear people say, well, I don't want to study theory because, man, I don't want to, I don't want to have all that stuff get in the way of my creativity or whatever.
Yeah.
It's bullshit.
Well, yeah, I mean, I don't know if it's bullshit necessarily. Like I know what you mean, and I don't agree with that, or that doesn't agree with me. It's like
Right.
I want to get to the bottom of things, and I want to know why this chord sounds like that, and why it's called like that, and what's the scale or the number of scales that can go over that chord, and why.
But also, if you're on a gig, if someone says, "Oh, it's whatever,"
yeah. Well, yeah, I mean, like when
bridge.
For sure. Like when you become, when you're at a certain level, and like for me, like I knew that pretty quickly that I wanted to, that was going to be my life, and that I wanted to play all the time, and like so you need a certain baggage, and you need an understanding that you can share with other people. And like you said, like you're on stage, it's like, okay, we're going to do this song in G or whatever. You have to understand what that language means, so that you can, at first communicate with words about what it is and have a common understanding, and then communicate musically with everyone.
Because words matter.
Do they? That's what I've been told.
Yeah, words really matter.
Yeah.
I mean, you can communicate in plenty of ways, but if you want to communicate succinctly and directly, then words really matter.
Okay, we've established that words matter. This is going well, I think.
Going
deep.
Through high school, you're playing in bands. You're playing in cover bands or original bands?
No, original bands. Yeah, that's like where I grew up. There wasn't really a scene. Well, there wasn't really a scene for bands to begin with, so there wasn't really like a bar band that was playing on the weekend or stuff like that. But there was a place in my town where it was sort of like a cultural, like, youth house kind of, where like a lot of the young people would get together and like do art or hang out or whatever. And there was like a music section, like a band section, and people would get together and either like form a band or just play for an afternoon or whatever. So I met some people there that wanted to be in the band, and we got a band together, and I wrote the music, and we did that for a couple of years, and that same place would put up some concerts on Saturday nights, or like once a month, or however often it was. And those were my first gigs, those were my first performances, public performances.
What was that music like? The first songs you were writing?
It was, what was it like? It wasn't very good, I don't think. But like I was already trying to meld my influences, and it was going more towards like Satriani and like Dire Straits, a mix between that, I guess, like a lot of solo, like virtuosic playing, but not instrumental. We had some instrumental songs, but most of them, I was singing lead vocals at the time, which was a mistake. But just trying to fit the mold somewhat. Like if I had my way all the way, I would just do instrumental, but then just nobody would fucking show up at the gigs if I did that. So I had to adapt a little bit and still like what I was doing at the time, and so that ended up being that. But it was fun. I learned so much, and I remember like the first time, the first song that we got together. There was a guy in the room that was supervising every band, like almost like a teacher, kind of like a coach,
Yeah.
because we're all like 14, 15. We don't know anything about playing together, and that guy was in his 30s or something like that, and he would give his opinions and advice. And so I remember getting together with a bass player and a drummer and showing them the songs, and there's like an up 1 2 3 and everybody hits those downbeats and those upbeats at the same time. And so like you explain what it is, and then you do it, and that feeling when everybody hit that upbeat at the same time, like with a crash cymbal and the chord change, and I'd never felt anything like that. It was so powerful. Just I was shaking, like inside, like, and that was incredible. I knew that was it. That's what I wanted to do for the rest of my life. I could never do anything else.
You were hooked.
Yeah, that was it.
So all of your earliest band experiences, you were a band leader.
Yeah.
Was that, I mean, you said that there was an adult rec supervisor or whatever there.
Yeah.
Did you sort of follow his lead and learn how to be a band leader in that situation? And then the second part of that is, I mean, I guess that's a hard thing for a young person to be able to communicate ideas, especially because who knows where the talent level with your bandmates were, but later you sort of flip-flop and you're a chameleon, and so you can jump into all these other roles.
Right.
How much of being able to communicate as a leader do you think translated when you flipped back around?
A lot, I think. I mean, it's because I've been on both sides, so
Right.
It's important to know what each side requires,
Words.
and yeah, exactly. And back then, like like I said, I had a pretty good understanding of music and theory, and the coach was super helpful in giving like really, really useful advice. But I also had pretty clear ideas of what I wanted in the music I was presenting, so, and in that way it was very, very helpful in manifesting my vision, like he wasn't trying to have it his way or anything, he was very much observing and trying to help me and ultimately the whole band, accomplish what we wanted musically, and
He was like
pretty
a producer.
Yeah, a little bit, but he wasn't super hands on. Like how to say, it was very, if we had disagreements or if he said, well, okay, so this is the way you want to do it. Okay, that's fine, but this is how you're going to achieve that. Like you can't. Everybody's got to hit that a beat or whatever at the same time. At first these are things that I didn't understand, but pretty quickly he was there all the time, but pretty quickly he saw that we were good on our own. Like he didn't really. We didn't really need him, so to speak, other than, once in a while, like ask him for advice about a certain part or something like that. But he could see that things were under control, you know.
The other kids they also had sort of excelled at their individual instruments.
Yeah, I think so. Like there was the drummer in particular, like the which was the second drummer of the incarnation of that band. Like he was in we were in class together in high school, and he had also been playing since it was, you know, like 7 or 8 or whatever, and like went to music school, and like was had a very technical understanding of the instrument, and played loud as fuck. You know, I'd never heard anybody play as loud, and he sounded good, you know, like that snare was cracking, you know what I mean?
Is he still playing?
Yeah. He's actually, you know, he still lives in Bordeaux, and you know, he is a music professional. Like he does a lot of sound too, like technical sound, but he also plays drums, you know. He kind of balances the two. So and he's hustling, you know what I mean? But
Yeah.
he's making it happen, you know, and he's incredible, you know, like his technique is unbelievable, and you know, he does some recordings at home now and stuff like that. Like things have changed, of course, over the course of 20-25 years, but
I think as a side note, I think drummers make the best engineers, sound engineers.
probably, you know, well, that brings me to probably a friend we have in common, Dennis Leaflang, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
I mean that guy's a great engineer, you know, and particularly for drums, because I don't know if there's a science behind that, but you know, like I'm sure there's so many elements of the drums, you know, so
it's an insane instrument. There's so many components, right?
Yeah, and it covers all the frequency range, so to speak, you know, like from the bass drum to the cymbals, you know, and everything in between. So you need to have a great ear and a good understanding of how those frequencies work together, you know.
He's drummed on 2 episodes for me, and he's
Great.
like, today, like, I mean, I finished 30 minutes ago, but before we started, I finished playing bass on a drum track he delivered me, and it was just
good,
like the best.
Yeah, he's pretty good.
God,
yeah, he's incredible.
So, at this point, you're what, 17?
Yeah, 15, 16. And it's at that point that I start going to that jazz conservatory that I mentioned.
Before
to you
you
before.
even did you finish high school, or did you just say,
yeah,
this, I want to go?
I did finish high school, and I did conservatory on the side, like on my free time.
You were dedicated.
Yeah, yeah, man. I mean, you know, yeah, that's and luckily I was a good student in high school too. Like I had good grades, and you know, I had to work, of course, and do all my homework, but I didn't have to struggle through it, you know. So that was a helpful incentive for my parents also, to be like, okay, well, you get good grades, and you can still, you know, continue to do so much music on the side, and that's not going to impact your grades. So that's you know, everything. We're all good.
So they were always supportive of your pursuit of
yeah, thankfully, yeah. I'm very thankful to them, you know, and they've been supportive, and I assume it hasn't always been easy to be supportive, you know what I mean? And I realize that now. I didn't then, of course, but that's gonna be tough.
That's a tough road. I mean, yeah, I can't imagine.
Yeah, and you know, there's no way to be in their shoes, you know, but it's nice as you get older, you know, to have a perspective on that thing, and thinking back then, you know, I mean, you know, like fuck, like I imagine myself when I was 15 or 16, and they would drive me to practice with that band, you know, and I mean, I felt like I knew everything back then, you know, but as a petulant, you know, teenager on some level, but. And looking back at it now, like I was just a kid. Like, okay, it's crazy that they were just like, oh yeah, I'll just drive you there, and you're gonna play with your friends, and they would come to the shows, and you know, they'd be pretty impressed. But I also imagine they weren't like particularly connecting to that kind of music necessarily.
Right.
But you know,
you don't think so? What were they into?
They are a pretty varied range of things. But my dad was super into classical music and also still into pop and rock stuff. Like he turned me on to Dire Straits and stuff like that. My mom's really into Dire Straits also.
Nice.
But and they're also into sort of like older French music type of things, and pop music, and that they grew up with, or that they were teenagers around that time. And
Yeah.
but they turned me on to a lot of great things, like the Beatles and Pink Floyd and all that stuff, that came from them.
Is gong French?
Yeah, I believe so.
Yeah, I saw Gong live once in
Yeah.
Seattle.
What about Magma? Do you know Magma?
I don't know Magma.
Oh man, that's like a crazy. They're French. It's a crazy fusion band that I think came out in the 70s or maybe the late 60s, and they have their own spoken language that they sing into. And it's crazy. They've got all types of a revolving door of band members over the years, and I think they're still around in some form or another. That they have like 500 records, and it's insane. But
Really?
well, not 500, but a ton.
They just record every practice and
Yeah, this super productive, and but they've always been particularly in France, like they've been a reference for a long time.
I'm gonna check that out.
Yeah.
So because you started at this school so young, you must have got out of that school earlier than most other students.
Well, I at the conservatory, you mean?
Yeah.
Well, I only stayed there. How many years did I stay there? Like I didn't follow the actual program. Like I did like some private lessons and like some other. It wasn't a very. It didn't have to be a regimented study there. Like you could follow. A very strict course, over a couple of years, or you could also kind of pick and choose, between like private lessons, and I also took like some production and engineering classes and something else that I can't quite remember at the moment. But I was, primarily focused on playing guitar and studying guitar. So I was there for 3 years, I think.
Theory?
What's that?
They make you study keyboard theory?
I didn't, but I believe that's an option. Yeah.
Yeah. It seems like it should be so easy, but I look at a keyboard and I like
it doesn't click.
Lost.
Yeah.
Lost. You?
Well, like I understand how to build chords and stuff like that. I don't have any chops,
Right.
I can't really play that much, or I can, I use a keyboard for recording, and I just kind of do, okay, this chord, okay, stop. Okay, now next chord. Okay, good. And I understand how, just the chords are built, and I can't even program some simple parts, in MIDI and stuff like that, and it's would sound, more or less like a real, keyboard player, and so, in the very basic way, I'm not gonna program a jazz solo or anything like that, but
Right.
I have a basic understanding of it.
So you don't finish there. What do? Do you leave Bordeaux?
So I finished high school, right? And my last year of high school, I'm looking into getting an audition to get into Berklee College of Music. Right? So at the time, and I think they still do that now, but they were traveling, Berklee was traveling around the world to give auditions. There's 2 days of auditions in Paris and 2 days of auditions in Tokyo or whatever, and to their entrance auditions, and they also give out, scholarships.
Yeah.
So I sent all my stuff in, and I get an audition in Paris, and so I have to travel there to to play for them, basically, right, and show them what I could do. And they asked me a bunch of theory questions, and like just kind of all round out sort of audition. And and they told me some months later that I got in, and I get a scholarship, and come on out. So that changed everything.
You got a full scholarship to Berkeley?
Not a full scholarship, but a pretty, a nice help.
Right. That's incredible.
Yeah, man, I was pumped. Like that was crazy. So and so that was my last year of high school that I took that audition and got the results. And
you're 17 and you're like, I'm going to the States.
Yeah, so that's where I got a little tricky, because like as supportive as my parents were, that's a big step to finish high school, leave the house, and move an ocean away to study music for 4 years. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
understandably. So long story short, I took a year off after high school, and I was teaching and playing in a couple bands, teaching guitar and playing in a couple bands. And then, the year after that, I went over and started Berkeley in Boston.
So there was no time limit. There was no expiration on you.
There was, I forget what it was. Like it was a 2-year expiration limit or something like that. And at first, my parents and I had this understanding that I would take like a 2-year program in France in like chemistry or something like that. Like I was like, well, you can, do that first. And then it's like, okay. But then the timing didn't work out because the scholarship was going to expire. So they were like, okay, so, you can, and I got this teaching gig, right after high school, like teaching music in a school, in a music school. And which also left me a lot of time to play with my band and other bands, and also practice like a maniac just to prepare for Berkeley. So they were like, okay, well, so you do that for a year, and then next year you go to Berkeley, and here we go.
So that whole year you can spread your wings. You don't have to go to school every weekday.
Right.
You've got all this time. You're essentially, it's everything is music.
Yeah, more or less, because I was also recording a bunch at the time, like I've always been into recording at home. Some years before that, I had a 4-track cassette recorder, Tascam, which, I would just do everything on it, and then moved on to digital. And I was working with Cakewalk at the time, which later on became Sonar.
Yeah.
And I was recording my band's album, like we tracked the drums in a real studio, and then I did everything else at home during that year. It's like when I wasn't teaching guitar or actually, playing a gig or rehearsing with the band, I was, in my room just recording that and mixing it and, doing everything.
Wow.
Yeah.
So when you get to Berkeley, where's your head?
Where's my head?
Nervous? Yeah. Are you nervous? Are you like, I'm here to rule? Or are you very modest and like you assume that everyone is going to be absolutely incredible? Because everyone has some level of talent, but there's definitely a wide variation in talent levels.
For sure, and I was never into ruler kind of mode. I consider myself fairly humble, and I'm open to learning all the time and to learning from others. So. And particularly, I knew that I was coming from a small town in France, and it's a big fish in a small pond kind of thing, and like moving over there with people from all over the world of different varying degrees of talent. I knew that I was going to be in a pool of just incredible talent, and I wasn't into competition mode either. I was like, okay, let's learn from everyone, let's learn from the teachers and from the students, and let me show them what I bring to the table, and hopefully they'll take to it, and I'll do my best to be better all the time.
Right.
So I was nervous. It's on so many levels. It's crazy to. I was 19 when I moved there. And I'd never lived outside of my parents' house, and in a different country where they speak a different language. And I had a pretty good English back then, but it's one thing to watch movies on TV, and it's another thing to be by yourself on the streets.
Not knowing anyone.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I didn't know anyone.
Did they for incoming students, especially the students that were international students from that scholarship program, did they have like someone assigned to you to sort of like show you the ropes? And
no, not that I remember. I mean, there were some like
you can show up, and were there dorms?
Yeah, there were dorms. I was in dorms my first year there. Luckily, because that was in 2002, and that was just way easier to get accepted into the dorms, especially when you're an ocean away. It's kind of hard to be looking for apartments blindly and to do all that stuff while you're away. So
Sure.
luckily I just showed up and everything was laid out for me. Here's your room, here's your roommates. You're good.
What about your command of English at this point 20 years ago when you showed up?
It was pretty good already. Luckily, like I think because I was so much into music and looking at lyrics and stuff like that, and
right.
English lyrics, particularly, like I learned a lot from that, and I was always the best, English student in my class.
Educated by rock and roll.
Yeah, exactly. The school of rock, literally.
That's amazing.
Yeah, so it was transitional for sure, and I feel like I'm still learning now. Like you probably have, but I was gonna say you're gonna hear me say
I do. Man.
You're gonna hear me say weird shit sometimes, just in the way of
you're
sentences.
Hear me say weird shit. Yeah. You're gonna only hear me say weird shit.
Yeah, man. Let's hear you say weird shit. Come
on. So how was your first year?
It was great, man. It was intimidating at first and a little bit overwhelming on so many levels, and just adjusting to a new life and being away from everybody, and but also just immersed into music. There was nothing more important. That's all we did, everybody, and just surrounded by so much talent from all over the world. It was just incredible, and it's just I learned so much, especially that first year. I feel like it really opened my eyes to a lot of things to be aware of when you want to be a professional musician that I didn't even know existed, like even just like job outcomes, like cover bands and wedding bands. I didn't even necessarily know that those things were a thing back then, because I wasn't exposed to it. It wasn't part of my scene. I only knew, the Breeders were touring and they're coming to Bordeaux, and that's what a musician is,
Right.
And that's one aspect of it for sure, but there's so many aspects, and I'm
and
still...
where there's music, there's musicians. That's
exactly. Yeah.
I never thought of that when I was 15.
Right.
I never thought I could get a gig at a casino and make more money at a casino than I ever did playing a festival, pretty much. Not entirely, but like usually.
Yeah. I know what you mean, and these are the kinds of things that I discovered back then, and also like being in a big, metropolitan city, like there's a lot of music everywhere, and there's a lot of opportunities for music to be made. And
before I forget, because it just struck me, when did you play with Marky Ramone?
A few years ago. 2016 to 2018.
Okay, so it would have been after we. I actually had a casino gig,
Yeah.
right? And it was this like live karaoke band gig,
Okay.
and there, it was like 550 song playlist
Yeah.
that people could choose from. No charts. Uh, a screen would come up in the key of whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Someone always knew it. There was, when I first started, there was a keyboard player who would call out chords to me if I didn't know. I was just like, shit, it's always the fucking bridge, right? Anyway, it doesn't matter. This one night we were playing at a casino, and Marky was playing in the big room at the casino, and we were in like the small room. People would get up and sing with us, and the band walked through the room while we were playing. I don't know where they were going to get food or drinks or whatever. This was like 2013 probably.
Yeah.
um
Wow.
and we were and here's the fucking thing. We were playing a Ramones song,
Of course.
and we all saw him and the band, and we were just like, and we all fucked up at the same. I mean, it's really hard to fuck one of those songs up, but it's like one of those. It was probably the bridge,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
we literally all fucked off at the same time. It was really embarrassing. I was really hoping that you were there to witness that, but
No, I wasn't, unfortunately. But I know what you mean, though. And say, I mean, I don't think they're easy songs because, especially when in my case, when you have to learn like 50 of them, and in a very short amount of time, and they all sound the same, So it's like, wait, is this the one that goes to D, or is this the one that goes to C, or whatever,
Right. Who was in charge of screaming 1, 2, 3, 4?
Bass player.
Yeah, good.
Yeah, like as it is traditionally.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a crazy gig that you.
Oh yeah, man.
Like, how did that come up? We just
Well,
jump forward a lot.
Yeah, that's okay. If I'm okay with it, if you're okay with it,
We're gonna bounce around.
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, so I got the call for it in 2016 in the summer. So Marky at the time was managed by a Spanish guy named David, who I had known for a long time because David helped us when we were on tour in Europe with Cindy Blackman-Santana, who's a drummer that I've been playing with for a long time. And
Yeah.
we did a tour there in 2009, and David helped our tour manager with the Spanish portion of the tour for whatever reason, and we connected. He and I connected then, and we stayed in touch. And he saw that I was also playing. The gig with Cindy Blackman-Santana is very jazz rock improvisation kind of thing, but he also saw that I played more straight up rock and roll, and at some point he was like, hey man, Marky's looking for a new guitarist and he wants somebody that's in New York. Are you, do you know the Ramones? Would you want to come down to his practice space and see if you're a good fit, I was like, yeah, sure, no problem. Send me the set list, so he sends me, a 40 song set list. And which and I, honestly, like I knew some Ramone songs, like I didn't know them that well,
right?
And certainly not playing them, so. And I tried to cram as many songs as I could. I think I got up to 10 songs, before me and Marky met, and it was just me and him in the room. He said, just come at 2:00 at Complete Music Studios in Brooklyn, and we'll play. And I thought the rest of the band would be there, and it was just me and him, right?
Right.
I'm like, okay. And he's just like, yeah, he's a super mellow guy, It's like, hi, I'm Mark. Let's just play the tunes. I'll do the count offs, and let's go down the set list. Rockaway Beach, 1, 2, 3, 4, and then we start playing, you know,
Right.
like right away. And then we finish Rockaway Beach, and it's like Teenage Lobotomy, and he starts the drum groove, and we just go down the set list, you know, and it's, you know, twice as fast as what's on the recordings, by the way. It's just like an insane speed, which I knew, but like it's one thing to practice to that and, you know, internalize the songs like that, and to play it with the drummer in front of you, just the two of you.
Right.
That's, you know, in an audition sort of setting. It's that was bizarre.
Well, yeah, you're just like, that's a very naked, intimate way to.
Yeah, and at the same time, it's just like, you know, that's probably how it would be with the Ramones back then. You know, like if they had a new guy coming in, it's like, okay, let's play the song, let's go, boom, done. You're good or you're not, you know. And then we kept going down the set list, and I'm thinking, like, we're at song 6 or 7. I'm thinking, fuck, like I don't know what the next song is. Like I haven't learned it, and I haven't had the time to be like, okay, I only learned, you know, this much or whatever. And, you know, we play the 6th or 7th song, and there's no break between the songs. We finish a song, and he counts off the next one. He says that, you know, what the next one is, and counts it off, and we go, you know, and I'm starting to sweat because I'm like, fuck, I don't know this next one. I haven't learned. And luckily, like, we finished that one song, and he's like, okay, let's take a break. And I'm like, oh, thank God. And he looks at me and he goes, yeah, it's fine. And that was his way of saying, you know, you're in. It's fine. It's because, you know, it's like the way I see it anyway. It's like it's like I said, it's a no bullshit kind of thing. You know, you either play it or you don't. You know, and you either struggle or you go through it.
Right.
And, you know, luckily that was it. And he was like, okay, this is it. You know, and I told him, you know, I have to learn the rest of the thing. You know, I only learned that many songs. He's like, okay, well, you know, learn the rest of it. Let's rehearse again next week. And there was just the two of us, because I found out, you know, like the singer, who's still the current singer now, lives in Spain, and he has a few different bass players that he uses, and they're all in different places too, and, you know, so
right.
it's kind of crazy how that works, you know, and then, you know, we kept rehearsing every week for a month or something like that, and then I get an email one morning from his manager, who's in Spain also, coincidentally, lives there in Barcelona, and he says, hey, Aurelien, can you do, you know, November or whatever, 25th, it's probably like 3 weeks out or something, we have a date in Colombia opening for Guns N' Roses, can you do it? And I'm like, yes.
Absolutely.
I will make myself available.
Yeah.
And that was, you know, that was it. That was my first gig, you know, like we opened for Guns N' Roses in a stadium in Colombia.
In Bogota?
Yeah. No, in Medellin.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah. And then we got there the day before, and we rehearsed. I rehearsed with everybody in the band for the first time the day before, you know.
This is 2016.
Yeah.
I mean, the Ramones are huge in South America as well.
They're like the Beatles.
Right.
Yeah.
As it turns out, Guns N' Roses also.
Yeah. For sure.
That's like monsters of rock for these fans.
Yeah, I mean, it was just crazy. You know, it was such a crazy experience for me. You know, like to see the fans, and you know, mind you, there was a Guns N' Roses gig. You know, it wasn't a Ramones gig, but you know, people knew them, and like the doors of the stadium open at like 4 p.m, and people are just running, and, you know, the whole floor, there's no seats, you know, there's only the bleachers, right? The whole floor is just standing room, right?
What is the capacity of the stadium? That
stadium was like 40,000, I think.
Is this the biggest show you've played at this point?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That's a good crowd.
That's a good crowd, man. And it was, you know, it was full, and you know, people started showing up early, and we didn't even play until 9. So it's like, For
Wow.
5 hours, those people are waiting, and they're just chomping at the bit for something to happen, right? For somebody to get on stage.
Right.
And like and we get called to go on stage, and we wait behind the stage, and the lights go out, and it's completely dark, and this just roar of a stadium crowd comes in, and I'm just like, oh fuck, this is insane, this is crazy.
You have that moment like, am I going to remember the songs?
Yeah, I mean, I was so confident that I knew the songs inside, and I was nervous, for sure. Like first gig with the new band in that kind of situation, that was a lot of firsts, But I knew that I would be nervous because of that, and I knew from experience that I can't. On top of that, I can't be nervous that I don't know the songs well enough,
Right.
So,
but at this point, I mean, you said 2016, yeah?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
You've played on a lot of different size stages.
Yeah.
You've probably been on a stage, if not that big, close to that big, like in a setting or something.
Totally.
A lot of times, I think playing music is playing music. And in the transition of stage sizes, which is way more important than crowd size, because once you get on a stage, you realize, like, whether it's 5 or 5,000 or 50,000, it doesn't matter. Like, your job is the same job.
Yeah, you have to execute in the same way,
Being able to hear everything, that's the fucking the part that really can fuck you up, going from a small stage where you can kind of, like, you could just hear the bass amp.
Right.
In the room.
Yeah. And that's what I'm saying, it's like I didn't know what it would feel like to be on stage on that stadium in terms of sound and in terms of, nervousness and stuff like that. But I knew those factors would exist, so, but but there's no way to predict what it's going to be. But one thing that you have control over is how prepared you are, and how well you know the songs, and how well you know the command of your instrument in general. So you can't let that bog you down, and that can't be a question mark. That has to be, you have to know that inside and out, so that you can actually focus on, oh, the sound is fucked up. Oh, like there's somebody streaking across the stage, or whatever it is.
Did that happen?
Not streaking, but there's been, not on that gig, but we've been bum rushed on stage for sure. Yeah.
Did you guys have other gigs with him down there in South America, or was it the one-off?
So there was 2 gigs on that one little run. It was this one first, and then we flew to Venezuela. We were going to play a festival there, and the day we're supposed to play, Fidel Castro died, and he was tight with the government of Venezuela, and it was a whole national mourning there for like 5 days or something like that. So they canceled the festival. Everything was shut down, right? So we ended up not playing, but we stayed in Venezuela in our hotels, like not able to leave the hotel, because it was a very sort of a dangerous situation over there.
Right.
As it still is now, to my understanding. Unfortunately, as beautiful as this country is, it's it can be kind of tricky. So we just stayed in the hotel for 3 or 4 days without being able to go out, and then we flew home, and we didn't get to play.
Oh, that sucks.
Yeah, but that was an experience for sure. But unfortunately, we couldn't play. But there, some of the other bands were there too in the hotel. Like Fear Factory was there.
Yeah.
And I remember being in in an elevator with Dino Caceres.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. And like I told, like, I'm a big fan. I was like, oh, who are you here with? I'm like, oh, I'm playing with Marky Ramone. He's like, Marky Ramone's here? I couldn't imagine that he was, a fan or, whatever it was, but
everyone loves the Ramones.
Yeah.
Everyone.
I guess, and that's what this gig taught me too. It's like, and we've done a bunch of tours, in Europe and South America, and like and Asia, Australia. We played in India, and like everywhere you go, there's gonna be a bunch of people wearing Ramones shirt and knowing every word, and it's just like for a lot of them, it's a religion, you know. I mean, they're so diehard, like so dedicated and diehard, and here's their son, and here's their grandson, and their granddaughters, and they're taking it to their first show, and it's you know, they're here to see Marky Ramone, and they saw the Ramones in the '70s, and you know, Czechoslovakia at the time, and you said you would never come back, and now you're back, and I can't believe that you're back. Oh my God, you know, it's wow, it's just so much passion, you know. So it's been awesome to be a small part of that legacy, and to be able to, you know, bring that to them on a modest level, you know. It is so cool.
That's amazing.
Yeah,
Did you stick around and watch the Guns show at all?
a little bit, yeah.
You know, I never saw them back in the day, and so, you know, I saw them when I play with Duff, and we opened for Guns N' Roses 2 shows, and so I saw that lineup that had like Bumblefoot and
right,
DJ and Richard on guitars, like the 3 guitar thing.
yeah.
And it's, you know, it's super impressive and extraordinary, but you know, it's not the same. And then you know, I grew up a big Slash fan, but the thing that struck me the hardest about watching that, because I've seen it a bunch at this point, is how fucking good Richard is.
Yeah.
Whew, that dude. And I mean, you know, he's the second, he plays second fiddle.
Yeah, sure, but you know, like he's also a total pro, and he knows his place. You know, I mean, he's you know, as good as, you know, Bumblefoot is, and he's just incredible, and Ashba and all those guys, like they're not Slash, you know, and there's nobody is Slash, nobody else but Slash is Slash, you know, and you know, so like. And when you just have to know that, and you have to know your place, and you have to know your role in the architecture of that band, you know.
Yeah.
I guess, I imagine.
I would imagine.
Here's my take on it, not having done the gig.
When did the Cindy gig come along?
I started playing with her in 2009, and we've been playing on and off, you know, since then. There's been several incarnations of the band, and luckily I've always been in it. But we met on a gig that we were both sidemen on in late 2008, and we connected right away. Like during the sound check, it was just, you know, like we locked eyes and locked grooves, you know, right away, and it was just a very natural, flowing sort of sound, you know. And we played the gig.
What was that gig that you guys did?
So it was actually a gig at Berkeley, of all things.
Oh wow!
But you know, I was
gone for a couple years at this point.
Yeah. I was living in New York for a couple of years at that point, and but while I was at Berkeley, I had been working with a voice teacher there called Kadison Kai, who I still work with now, and she's been in and out of teaching at Berkeley. But she's an amazing singer that was in Elton John's band for many years, and Sting and Chaka Khan, and it's just, you know, the list goes on. But as a teacher there, she was asked to put together an event, or I think it was a week-long thing. It was called Women in Rock, and the main the main event was this concert that she put together, and she invited, you know, Cindy Blackman and Terry Lynn Carrington and Michelle Indigo Cello and Saida Garrett, and you know, a bunch of just incredible ladies, and she asked me to be in the house band, you know. And I was like, okay, yeah, sure. So I got to play with all those people, and and one of them was Cindy, and that's when we reconnected, and we found out she lived in New York at the time. She didn't know that I lived in New York, but she was like, okay, well, we should jam. Like every musician ever says after playing with someone else, we should jam. And I took her up on it, and like called her when I got back to New York, and she was like, okay, well, get a bass player. Here's I have a space in the music garage in Williamsburg. Meet me there at this day with the bass player. And then we got together, all the three of us, and we didn't really know her, and she didn't know the bass player. His name is Steve Jenkins. Maybe you know him.
I don't
know.
Great.
Yeah, great bass player. And we got together, and we're just kind of setting up our things, and we're not talking, but we started playing, just improvising, and we stopped playing we played for an hour nonstop, just improvising, grooving, and then we stopped, and then Cindy was like, all right, I think we have a band. So I'm doing this tour in Europe in 3 months, and how would you guys like to be, part of the band? And that's how that started.
Wow.
Just that one jam rehearsal, and and she was sold, and she brought us onto that tour that she had, and it ended up being a tour with it was a 2-guitar thing. It was me and Vernon Reed from Living Colour.
Oh shit.
Yeah, and Steve Jenkins on bass, and Cindy, and we toured around Europe for 3 weeks. And
you said that it was it mostly improvisational, or were there some sort of frameworks that you guys always worked off of? And
yeah, I mean, it's a jazz gig in the sense that there is a little bit, there are some starting points, and then the exploration is really open and can be limitless, so it can be, every night is going to be different, and sometimes sometimes the way she would start a song, or one of us would start the song, would be completely different from one night to the other. Maybe it will be way faster or way slower, or like a ballad, or like something else, and we just kind of arrange on the spot, and make it fit on the spot.
Just whatever.
Yeah.
The feeling is that night.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, and sometimes, a lot of times too, we just stick to what the melody is, and that's how we're going to play it every time. But then once we go past the melody, it will go a different direction, and maybe she's going to start to play halftime for, whatever reason. Whoever is we're all kind of pulling and pushing, and listening to each other. So it changes all the time.
How many jams did you guys have before you went on tour to sort of get a feel for each other and meld?
Not many at all. I mean, I think we had that original jam, and then once the tour was, like locked in, and Vernon was in, like we rehearsed for maybe 2 or 3 days in a row, and that was it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm a big Vernon fan.
Oh man, I mean, he's incredible. He's the best, and a sweetheart of a guy, and so knowledgeable and encouraging, and just a unbelievable player. Like his mind and his ear is just next level.
He's like, embarrassingly, I met him once,
mm-hmm.
and it was one of those embarrassing moments where I was just like, I was just too flustered to have a conversation.
He's super down to earth, I mean, I understand that you would be intimidating or fanboying or a mix of those feelings, but he's just, it's so easy to have a conversation with him,
Yeah. So where did that tour go?
So that was all over Europe. So I think we were in Germany quite a bit. Like our booker was German, so we had most of the gigs in Germany and Austria. But we played I think we had a week in Spain with that guy, David, who was managing Marky Ramone. That's how we met, right? And let's see, what other crazy places we played that time. I don't know. I don't remember. Italy, probably Switzerland, or around there.
Yeah. She's incredible.
Yeah.
So you guys, I mean, the last year, of course, barred. The band is still active.
Yeah, I mean, like there's been a lot of lineup changes in her band, and the direction of the band has changed over the years a little bit, and now, well, for the past almost 10 years, it's been a 4-piece with guitar, keyboards, bass, and drums, and keyboards is usually Rhodes and synth, it's all very electric, and she plays heavy and it's jazz in the sense that it's improvised, but it doesn't sound, it's not a chicketing kind of thing, it's
right.
Heavy backbeat, and I always have distortion on, and it gets loud as hell sometimes, so depending on where we play, it goes over better than other places. Like sometimes in the small jazz club, we just blow the roof off, because we're so energetic.
Right.
Which can be cool, and sometimes we play in actual rock venues, which is a different sort of energy, and that feeds us in a certain way too, So that's a super fun gig, Like the exploration is just so fun.
Yeah, I imagine that's got to be one of the most fulfilling gigs there is to have. What was the first thing that you did after Berkeley? And did you get a gig before you left, or did you leave Boston, go straight to New York and start hunting?
Yeah, basically. I mean, I before I finished Berkeley, I was going back and forth to New York a little bit to do some gigs, and when I finished, I had my mindset of moving over here, and that's what I did. And it was tough at first because I was going back to Boston quite a bit to play and some wedding bands that I had there, and just trying to make a living. And there was a transition. What's that?
Were you taking that orange bus?
Yeah, the Chinatown bus and the Bolt bus, and
the Bolt. Yeah, that's the jam.
Dude, I don't even know if the Bolt existed at that point. I think it came in, like a little bit later, but there was a bunch of different buses then, for sure. So I did that, and I think like the first gig, like I played in this band called Stratospheres for a while. I started playing with them in 2007. Mm-hmm. And it's this guy Joe Denenzon who plays electric violin, fretted 6-string electric violin.
Really?
Yeah, and he sings too. So the band is like the sound of the band is kind of a mix between like Mahavishnu Orchestra and like Dave Matthews a little bit, with like a very prog element to it.
I love Mahavishnu.
Yeah. So so that guy Joe is all about virtuosic violin, electric violin. So that's Mahavishnu is one of those bands for sure.
So were you guys doing unison lines?
Yeah, harmonies, unison. Crazy fast shit. A lot of jamming too. There was a big jam band element, and Zappa element, and it's a very interesting band. And like it was a 4-piece band with drums and bass and guitar and violin, and we all sang, and we'd just get into Joe's minivan and drive around the country, as like very roots. But we got sometimes some really great gigs, connected everywhere we went. We connected with people, and sometimes there would be 5 people in the audience and sometimes 500, but for sure, like every show we did, I think we always sounded good. We were always on, and something about that band, like we never had a night that was off in terms of music. Like it was always hitting the spot, which was awesome.
That's a treat.
Yeah. And like so I recorded a couple albums with them, and that are, I think still really good, and the band's still around. But I called it quits in 2017 or so. Like, I had been in the band for 10 years at that point, and I wanted to move on. So
Yeah.
that was a good chunk of time to at that point I was ready to do something else.
When you had a lot of other gigs during that 10-year period as well.
Yeah, that was, like that was one of the gigs that I was doing. Like, we were never full time, and like all the musicians in that band in Stratospherius were all also, gigging and sidemen, and and we get together when we get together, but everybody's doing everything at the same time. So that was one of the things that I was active with.
What's the weirdest gig you've ever gotten? Have you ever gotten like a really weird gig where they're like, all right, you got to wear this costume, this teddy bear costume, and we're doing
well, like, like the
jazz swing stand,
And I won that gig, actually, if you have it. Well, the closest I got to that, I played in a circus for 6 months.
Really?
Yeah. Like almost like a Cirque du Soleil kind of thing, but the band was on stage. It was a circus company called Spiegel World, and I played with them for 6 months. In 2015, we did a tour in Canada.
Did you wear tights and felt boots?
No, but like, I had a costume. We're all characters. I was Moondog, and let's see. I had like sort of a vest that was all like kind of cut up, and like my chest was out and shit, and
right.
My hair was down. I was wearing aviator sunglasses, and then they wanted me to, like, I think I only did it a couple of times, and it got me in trouble because I wasn't doing it, but they wanted me to wear like this helmet that had like crazy horns on it and shit, but like, I hated the way, like, I don't wear hats. I'm not a hat person. Like, my head is shaped strangely, and like no hat fits me, and just I hate wearing hats. Okay, I hate it. All right.
That's your prerogative.
Yeah,
I support you.
Yeah, and then that hat was like just didn't fit me, and then was heavy as hell, and it was really hard to balance. And every time I looked down on my guitar, it would fall down, and it was just so frustrating, And like, I wore it for rehearsal, and I was like, I'm just gonna tell you, I'm never gonna wear this fucking thing,
right?
And I had to wear it once because like the higher up, the owner of the circus came to the show and was like, listen, you have to wear the hat tonight. And I'm like, okay, fine. But, that was a crazy gig. And, we're just playing music while people are, doing multiple somersaults in the air, and roller skating at high speed on a stage that, that's this big around. And it was, people from all over the world, Ethiopia, Russia,
wow,
just crazy stuff. Ukraine.
Right. Have you ever done a funk gig? Yeah, I want to go to Ethiopia so bad.
Yeah.
And I mean, I don't know if if there's still a scene like this, but I just want to see some real Ethiopian funk live.
Right.
I want to, God damn it, I want to see this.
That has to be pretty intense. Yeah, that has to be incredible to see it, firsthand in person, and with everything that surrounds, that makes it the context that it is. It's like the whole experience must be incredible. Yeah.
Have you done any funk gigs?
Well, not like purely funk, I guess, but. I've played, this is another side of my career, but I've been a Broadway pit musician for about 10 years also. Right. So I've gotten to play every style of music imaginable for musicals,
Broadway stuff.
Well, I kind of fell into it almost by accident because I my first gig was being a sub on the musical called Rock of Ages. And
Yeah.
I sub for Joel Hoekstra. And, and it's, while it is a Broadway show, it is not a Broadway show in the traditional sense of the word, because it's almost more like a rock show or a bar show, because you have to learn every song by, you have to memorize every song. The band is on stage.
Right.
It's not like a pit situation when you come in and you read and all that kind of shit,
Yeah.
But that's what got me in, like that was my first gig on Broadway as a sub, and I knew other Broadway players, and they took me under their wings to start subbing at Book of Mormon and in the pit, and I got to do all kinds of gigs.
I have a side question.
Yeah.
Are musicians on Broadway shows SAG members? Because it occurred to me that in that particular show, you're a stage performer.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have a SAG card?
No. I'm a union member, like a musicians union member, and that's all within the musicians union contract, to be on stage or not, to be in costume or not, to be choreographed or not. That's all part of it, but that's different than SAG,
right?
To my understanding.
What a crazy! There's so many nuts and bolts to that world.
Yeah, I mean, like it's just you're just one person of like 100 or so that is making the machine turn, and everybody has to be on. Everybody has to be at their top level to make the whole thing run, and that's really amazing to the teamwork that it takes to run that village.
Is there any like single, or are there two, like essentially are there any subs in the house in the event that someone goes down that kind of vaguely understudies every part that could cover anything
in the cast, you mean?
Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah, they're called swings.
So there's someone that could play the drums or the keys, like any of that. They're just
no. I mean, in the actors' world, there are people that understudy every role. In case of emergency, in case somebody calls out sick, in case somebody goes out on vacation or whatever. Right. And for musicians, no, there's not somebody in the house ready to do that. So it's the way it works is, the chair has to be filled by someone capable at 8:00, right? And so as when you're a chair holder, when that's your gig, that's your responsibility to have that chair filled. So most of the time it's going to be you, but the rest of the time it's going to be somebody else that you train and that you trust and that you schedule and that you give that night to, and that's what happened to me as a sub, like Joel said, here's the recording, learn it, and your first date is, April, whatever. And then you go in and you play. There's no rehearsal. There's no, it's, you come in to watch the show a few times to see, in the case of Rock of Ages, you have to know where you have to be on stage at certain moments. There's a couple interactions with some actors and stuff like that. You have to learn about the gear, the pedal board, all kinds of things that you can't really.
That's in the house.
Yeah. Even the guitars, like you use the guitars that are there.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. The sound is to be completely consistent, so if you show up with your own gear, it's just not gonna work.
That's an easy subway ride home, though.
Yeah, that's crazy to think about that, like you show up with nothing and then you go back home.
Wow, that's great.
Yeah.
Here's another little side question about
this
whole, this is blowing my mind right now. So let's say you are a chair holder. You play guitar in some production.
Right.
And you're fucking hungover. Whatever. Let's just say, but they don't know that. You're you're sick as far as they know.
Yeah.
you can just send someone that knows the part well to the production that night, and they show up and they'll be like, I'm your guy here tonight.
Yeah, yeah, that's how it works. It's like the music department is its own independent department, and there's just so many things to supervise, for everybody. Like even within the cast, it's like, okay, tonight the lead role, the lead actor is out because he has a cold or she has a cold, so this person is going to go in, but then this person normally does that role, so that person is going to do that role instead. And if they have to worry about, like the hairstylist is a different person, and the guitar player tonight is that guy that came 2 weeks ago, and like it's just like too much, So every department is kind of independent of each other,
right?
And like once like you train your subs, and the sub plays their first show, and most of the time it goes well, and they're approved by the music director, and at that point they can just come in and out whenever they're being called. And if that doesn't go well, they're not being called back.
Right.
And you have to find somebody else. But for any given chair on Broadway, there's at least 4 or 5 subs.
Wow.
that know the music and that can potentially show up cold and play the show.
Wow.
That's how that works.
Here's a little bit of a deeper question, and you can tell me to fuck off if you want. But if I'm a shareholder and I can't make a gig and I have a sub, do I still get a piece of that night as the shareholder?
No.
Like a sublet kind of a thing?
No,
or
no.
The sub get the full scale?
Yeah, yeah. The sub gets, the sub is the guitar player that night,
Because it'd be great
or whatever.
to be a shareholder on like 4 shows and just sub them out and like let it play it. It'd be like being a manager.
Man, it would be great, wouldn't it?
Because I'm fully qualified as a musician to do.
Yeah. Yeah,
I don't know.
That's a good idea.
Most
something
gigs I couldn't handle though.
Yeah.
Maybe, I don't know.
I'm sure, if you learned it, and like it's a mechanical thing. Broadway is so regimented. I mean, it's not an easy gig because you have to play a certain way, and especially when you're a sub, like you have to really be transparent. Right. Nobody has to notice that somebody else is in that chair, So if you show up and play completely different, that's just not going to work for anyone, Right. So it takes a lot of crafting and practice to play the parts as they're supposed to sound like,
What is the most nerve-wracking gig you've ever taken? You've gotten a lot of fucking gigs.
Yeah. I don't know. I like, to me, all gigs are challenging on some level, and probably, let's say, I would say, okay, something that was really, really hard for me was subbing on a Broadway show called The Last Ship, which was on Broadway for a very short time, but it's a musical that was written and performed by Sting and a bunch of other people. But and Sting was in the show for a period of time as one of the characters, right? And I got to sub on it, and then my first show, sure enough, I think that was scheduled as it was, and I knew that what was going on, but like, I'm going to play my first show with no rehearsal and all that stuff, like it's traditional for subs.
Are you in the pit or are you on stage?
I'm in the pit, and and the very first song is just guitar and Sting for a good 30 seconds, and that's just it's nerve-wracking to sub on a Broadway show for the first time, no matter what, because of all those reasons, no rehearsals, no, it's hard. It's really hard, right, to be in that context. And then, even knowing that he's going to be there, but like you hear Sting's voice in your cans, and it's like, oh yeah, that's Sting, and here I am playing with Sting right now, all by myself. if you get in your head for more than 2 seconds, and you're gonna lose your focus and lose your where you are in the page, and those were really demanding guitar parts too. So it took a lot of focus.
So you have some time to prepare for this, but you also have some charts or some sheet music in front of you.
Yep. Mm-hmm. Yeah, but the sheet music, it communicates only a portion of what you're supposed to play. I mean, it's all in there on the sheet, but the way you're gonna interpret and execute it takes some studying of the person whose chair it is that's going to sound a certain way, and then making sense of the sheet music for yourself, and also adapting to the player that you're studying, to adapting to a style and all that stuff, so that takes a lot of different muscles to stretch.
So help me paint a picture here, so that just the sort of anatomy of a Broadway show, this and one that's not like Rock of Ages. So there's the stage.
Yeah.
Immediately down in front is the pit. Yeah.
Most of the time, yeah. Sometimes the band is in a different room altogether. Sometimes, like, the drummer is on the 3rd floor and the rest of the band is in the basement, nowhere to be seen.
Is that right?
Yeah.
The drummer is isolated.
Yeah, the drummer is most of the time is always isolated, and sometimes they're in a completely different room, sometimes a completely different floor, depending on how the theater is laid out.
What the fuck?
Yeah, and there's cameras everywhere, so you can see the conductor, you can see the drummer, you can hear everything, obviously, and it's just such a tight machine that it works in that way.
Okay, so. Jesus fucking Christ. Okay,
yeah.
So
you're okay?
No, I'm not okay. All right, so you've got a screen and you can see the stage. Which direction are you facing?
It depends. It depends on the show. Like, sometimes, as you said, like, the pit is directly under the stage, and sometimes you can even see, like, the first row, kind of like looking up,
Right.
Or the people's feet or their hands or whatever, or the drinks that they put on the side of the. Or sometimes you're in a completely different room, and then there's a camera. You see a feed of the stage for your own reference. Like, sometimes you might want to use that knowledge and that data. Sometimes not. So sometimes it's there, sometimes not.
In this video feed?
No, it's all or very
immediate.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay, so. This is pretty this is a very contemporary, modern approach to a stage production, right? Like,
sure.
Normally traditionally there'd be like an orchestra or a pit orchestra, and a conductor would be seeing the stage show, conducting as things are happening, conducting sound effects and whatnot, right?
Yeah. Like, the conductor is kind of the link between what's going on stage and what's going on in the band area or the music area.
And is it more or less still happening in the same way, except you're seeing him or her on a video feed, or is there also some other software involved? Like, are we using whatever what are the softwares that people use on stage now, like
Ableton or Main Stage? Yeah. Well, it's a case by case situation. For instance, I subbed in a show for years called School of Rock, like the movie. They made a Broadway musical out of it, right? And so the whole band was in a completely different room in the theater, right? And the conductor was in the room with us. So there was a camera on the conductor that was being thrown to the people on stage. So there's TV screens on the side of the stage. There's TV screens on the balcony, so that the actors that are on stage facing the audience also see the screen that's in front of them hanging off, the balcony, so they can see the conductor. All right, that's in our room.
Yeah.
Right. So and the conductor also sees what's happening on stage, because sometimes, when such and such character, starts jumping, then that's the downbeat for, this moment or whatever it is. There's all kinds of visual cues happening that the conductor follows, and that all happens by way of different screens and cameras, and that's a super standard way of doing Broadway these days.
There is no drifting off in the middle of a tune. There's no like your mind is absolutely present.
Yeah, yeah. That's the hardest thing I think about being a Broadway musician, is the amount of focus that you have to keep at a high level for that long is exhausting. And you get some breaks sometimes, like you're not playing all the time, but I also subbed on the show Hamilton for some years, and that is just music, 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 music. There's no breaks, and the guitar particularly has no breaks.
Right.
And that is just, and none of the parts are necessarily hard. I mean, they have to be right, and in that way they're hard, to play exactly right. And it's hard to play exactly right for 3 hours nonstop.
Yeah, there's no improvisation. There's a part execute.
Yeah, very little. Like the only moments where, say there's some lines of dialogue and there's some music that underneath, like some underscore, and depending on how the dialogue is going, the underscore is going to be a little shorter or a little longer, and that's up to the music director to cue us out of that section and into the next one. And sometimes it's just on the verge of being too long or being too short, or they're not quite going to make it to this word, and we're all kind of taking a breath and be like, okay, we're all in the same place. Cool, all good. Let's keep moving.
I think no one realizes how much work goes into, and myself included, how much work goes into a musical production.
Oh man, yeah, it's a lot of work. It's crazy. And before the world shut down last year, I was the chairholder in the Tina Turner musical on Broadway, which was awesome. It's all Tina Turner music, and I came in on from the ground up on that one. Like I was part of the early rehearsals and everything. So I modestly helped build the show, and my part of it.
Yeah.
And so it's really interesting to see all the little the millions of little mechanical things that it takes for the show to be running, on the musical level, on a cast level, on a we're gonna stay on this scene for 2 hours today because the lighting has to be just right, and we need to adjust that light that's over there that somebody has to go on the roof to access and move it 1 inch, over,
Right.
or whatever it is.
Very naive question for you. Was she involved in the production at all?
She's one of the producers, but. We saw her, we met her. She came to opening night, and that's that's as far as I know, that was her involvement. She wasn't really hands on or anything like that, but she gave her okay and all those kinds of things.
So you didn't get a chance to did you speak with her?
No. Unfortunately, she was pretty.
She's one of those people almost more than anyone else that you would want to hear hey, I loved what you did tonight.
For sure. And she was, she looked thrilled, and moved, as I'm sure, it must be pretty intense to see a rendition of your life as an intense life at that, on a stage. And, but yeah, she had her, her surrounding and all that stuff, and she was pretty private, and it wasn't that kind of meeting, unfortunately.
Understood.
Yeah, it was great though to just see her, be in the same room as her, and she came up on stage after the show. We all took a group picture together, and just that was amazing.
Yeah. What was the last gig you played?
Well, that gig, like that night, March 11th. That was the last one, because Broadway, Broadway is 8 shows a week, right? So there's only one night off, which for us was a Monday. So yeah, we did Tuesday, and then we did a double on Wednesday. We did a 2 p.m. and an 8 p.m. and then Thursday we're like, come to the theater, get your shit, and don't come back until don't come back for now. Which at that point was only going to be 1 month, but here we are. But right before that, I actually did a string of shows with Cindy Blackman, and a few days before that, and we did 3 or 4 nights in Baltimore.
Oh yeah.
And we recorded those shows for a future release, and I'm not really sure where that stands now, but I know those shows are on a hard drive somewhere, and they were pretty good. So hopefully they'll come out.
Where was
sometime.
the gig?
What was the gig?
Where was it? Yeah.
Oh, at a venue called Keystone Corner. It's a jazz club in Baltimore.
Nice.
Yeah, amazing club. What's that?
I like Baltimore. It's kind of a weird town.
Yeah, it's nice. Like,
I'm kind of into it though.
I like it too.
Yeah. So you haven't hit the 1 year mark. I hit the 1 year mark a couple Thursday or something for my last gig.
Okay. Yeah. No. Yeah. March 11th was my last gig. Yeah. So, we're getting to it.
I saw one gig later. I keep the ticket here because it was a cool gig, but also because it was, whoa, look at that. It was also March 11th.
Zappa plays Zappa. Wow. Okay.
I think that, I think that he stopped his tour.
Yeah.
The day after, or the 2 days after that also.
Probably. Yeah, sure.
That was just sort of the
the universal, or at least in the US at that point, that was the cutoff. Yeah. Yikes.
Do you hear any updates at all? I mean, I hear different things from different people. I just heard from a friend of mine at one of the dominant American promoters.
Mm-hmm.
And he's like, yeah, I think 2022. And I was like, what?
Yeah.
What, are you fucking kidding me?
Well,
he's not producing, they're doing,
yeah,
McCartney or whatever.
Right. Sure. What I know in my world, or my current world or my latest world maybe, which was Broadway, is, and we're still in the loop of that, and they're trying to start reopening shows in June. That was the last time that we heard, which seems a little ambitious to me, but a lot of people seem to be agreeing on September being a more realistic start again date.
You got to show up with your vaccine card, kind of.
I don't know, because I think those reopening dates were decided before the vaccines started to get rolled out and stuff like that. So that was all kind of speculation, I guess, on some level at that point, which it still is also, and staying
speculation.
yeah. So I don't know, if I hope that does happen, of course, for many reasons, summer or September, and I'm not sure what the protocol is going to be in terms of, if you have to show your vaccine or a negative test, or a combination, whatever it's going to be, I don't know.
Right.
Yeah.
I just can't wait to see live music again.
Me too, man. As much as I love performing, and that's my oxygen, and I also miss. I'm a music fan to begin with, and I miss just going out and seeing a band. That's what I love the most.
Have you taken this time to focus on recording?
Yeah, definitely. I have a couple projects that I'm working on that are exciting, and hoping to wrap them up within the next couple of months and put them out, and hopefully some people will listen to it and it will be cool, but it's been a different way of working and sharing, but one project I'm excited about is with a drummer called Sammy Marandino, who played with Cyndi Lauper for many years.
Oh wow! What era?
What's that?
What era?
I'm not sure, like lately I think.
Yeah.
But he's a great drummer and very, he's got a great recording setup at his place and gets great drum sound. And we've been exchanging files, and we're doing sort of a, guitar-centric instrumental project, kind of like, Jeff Beck a little bit, but a little heavier, a little groovier.
Yeah.
And I think we're gonna do like a 5-song EP or something like that. Like we're still working on it, and have a few different bass players and keyboard players join us, and
awesome.
all remote, of course, and it's kind of interesting to be playing like that. Like I record all of my tracks to a click, and then he play, so I'm soloing over a click, and then he puts his drums, so it's like kind of backwards in terms of communicating in real time. Of course, that can't really happen, communicating musically, reacting. But
so you don't lay down like a MIDI drum track you're just like click and don't even imagine what the groove is?
It's a case by case thing, but for this project, I would just do it to a click, and then he would, play his parts. And a lot of times I would have to retrack my rhythm tracks to his drums so that they're a little, we're a little tighter together,
Yeah.
But a lot of the soloing stuff, I would just keep as it is. I don't retrack it, and a lot of it is improvised in the first place, so if I liked what I had originally to the click, which is a weird thing to do, but I would just leave it like that. And the way he builds his drum parts, he's listening to what I'm doing during the solo, so he's reacting off of that.
Right.
Instead of doing it in real time, he's just doing it slower like that.
There's got to be some interesting things that happen also, at least for you, when you get it back and you hear what's happening underneath.
Totally. Yeah. And sometimes, like I said, like most of the time I have to retrack my rhythm parts, and hearing what he's doing on the drums, that might change, it gives me different information. It informs me differently in how to do this rhythm part or that rhythm part. I'm going to, hit that accent because that's what he did, and I hadn't done that originally for a number of reasons.
It's kind of cool. I mean, it really, the silver lining, I guess, if there is one, is that people have been challenged to try new ways.
Yeah, man. I mean, the way I see it, it's just it's just a different way to make music. It's not the way that I'm used to doing it, but it is a way to do it, and I think it's valid, and and it sounds good, and at the end of the day, it doesn't matter how it's made, right? It just really matters what it communicates in the end, and how it makes you feel, and if you like it or if you don't like it, so like the process, you don't have to know about the process as a listener.
Right. Would you be interested in playing guitar in a Couchress video? I'd love to have you play on one.
Oh yeah, sure.
I have a song in mind.
Oh, fuck.
Out loud. I'm going to email you a few songs if you don't mind.
Yeah. Okay. Cool.
I'm going to send you 5 suggestions, five songs and if none of them sing to you, that's fine. Okay. I don't know. Did I send you a song list?
No.
I have this like 250 song wish list.
Okay.
That ranges from, Hercules by Aaron Neville and ends at, I'm Bad, I'm Nationwide by ZZ Top or something.
Okay. Yeah.
everything in between.
All right, I'm down. You know, I love doing that stuff.
It would be
I
pretty
just
fun. It's similar kind of thing.
Yeah, it has to be, right? But you know, I love performing in any case, you know, and I love playing, and I miss it. So you know, whatever excuse is good, and you know, that sounds like a great project in the first place, you know. So
Great.
that's even better.
How have you kept your shit together this year? Have you?
It's been challenging,
Yeah.
yeah, and it's been it's hard, and you know, I live here in this apartment with my girlfriend and her 4-year-old daughter.
Yeah.
So it's been it's been you know, it's been rough to all be together all the time and have a little kid in the mix, and you know, tending to her needs, and that's and trying to tend to my own needs and my girlfriend's needs and all that stuff. You know, and it's a juggling act constantly, and it's you know, some days are better than others.
And right now, it's not like you can just, comfortably be like, all right, I'm going to go for a walk. You can go for a walk when I get back, and it'll be my shift.
Right,
It's
exactly.
fucking cold as shit outside.
Yeah, for sure. And you know, it's we try to make do. You know, we try to work on sometimes a schedule, but sometimes it's kind of loose, and you know, so it's always kind of changing, and at times it makes it challenging for me to work on projects and stuff like that, and definitely slower output than usual. But that's, you know, that's just the way it has to be right now.
At home, you're working with the Axe effects, though.
Very little turns out right now. I have one here, but all of my recording I do with bias effects.
Oh, okay. So
Yeah,
everything's in the box.
yeah, yeah.
Put a mic in front of a.
No, I wish I could.
You can work through the night after the little one goes to bed.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, yeah, and you know, not totally piss my neighbors off too. So, but yeah, that's been working great. You know, and then that's one thing about being stuck at home that really, you know, I really got to work on my tones in the box. You know, and work with that plugin and get like some really decent tones. You know, and for this whatever sessions I have to do, whether it's personal creative stuff, or I've done some commercial sessions as well that requires, you know, just different tones and different sort of vibes, and that's one thing that I've been working on and getting better at.
Well, I'm glad you're staying busy. It's tough year.
Yeah, you know, I try to. Everything is different, you know, so the busyness is different as well.
What version of Bias are you using? They just release a new one?
Yeah, I'm using the old one. I think there's the first one. Did they? Which one did they release? Like the 2 or 3, or I don't know. But
I don't know. I was just gonna.
yeah.
I don't know much about it.
Yeah.
So I was gonna mine you for details.
Yeah. No, sorry. I'm useless.
Doesn't seem like it.
Well, you know, on most things.
Well, man, I've had a great time talking with you. You're fucking incredible.
Oh man, thank you. It's been great speaking with you.
I think, yeah. Do you teach or anything? Is there anything like that I can plug up at the top?
Yeah. I have some students online, you know, through Skype and Zoom, and I've been doing that during this time as well, you know. So I'm happy. I have some slots open for sure. So I'm happy to take on more students.
Your website?
Yeah, website or Instagram is kind of my my go-to, you know, accessibility right now.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'll make sure that folks know that they can reach out to you that way.
Cool. Yeah. Thank you. That'd be awesome.
Someone wants to learn something, they would be hard pressed to not be able to learn from you.
Hopefully, you know, yeah, it's fun to teach online, and I've written some like guitar articles and like Premiere Guitar and stuff like that in the past. So there's a bunch of data over there as well.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, man, thank you so much.
Sure. Thank you.
Um, it's I'm in this like freezing cold studio. My studio is built on top of the old porch for our house, so it's
Oh.
really it's I might look relatively comfortable, but normally there's a little dog down there in front of that heater.
I see it. Well, I see the heater. I don't see the dog.
Nah, he's in the other room because he
Yeah.
likes to make a bunch of racket.
Ah, okay.
Um, but I'm gonna go warm myself up.
All right. Sounds good.
Thank you.
I'm gonna make some crepes.
Nice. Wait a minute. Don't you mean crepes?
Crepes. Yeah, my parents just sent me this recipe that they use, and and I've never done it myself, so I'm fuck it, I'm gonna do it now.
In French, isn't it pronounced crepe?
Yeah, crepe.
That was very generous of you to
I know that
it
was
with an American English inflection so that we weren't lost.
some crepes,
Give
some
me
crepes for you.
grapes.
Yeah,
Toss them in the toaster, right?
yeah, I think so. That's how you make them, right?
Yeah. They come frozen and you put them in the toaster or the microwave for
Like most things.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
When I say you're amazing, I fucking mean it.
Oh man, thank you. That's nice to hear. I appreciate that.
You've given me so much time.
Oh yeah, no problem. That was fun.
All right, man. Have a great night. Oh, hey, will you do me a solid?
Yeah.
I imagine from all of your experiences, you must have a couple of photos of you stage performing.
Okay.
Could you send me a few?
Yeah.
I'm gonna like fucking chop the shit out of them.
Yeah.
I don't know if you've seen any of the posters I make, but I'm gonna fucking mangle it.
Okay.
Put something behind you and.
Uh-oh. Should I be worried?
Nah, maybe.
Yeah.
I'm gonna put a circus behind you.
Yeah. Draw a dick on my face or something.
Totally, just tattoo. You're gonna be
like
a mumble rapper, but with like dick tattoos.
Like a black tooth.
Yeah.
Yeah. Perfect. I love that.
All right. Have a great night.
Thank you. You too.
Bye.
Pleasure. Bye.